When you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, to see how efficient they've been offensively, to see how explosive Luka has been, to see how LeBron has made the adjustments, being the leader and the four-time champion that he is, and understanding who he is and what he brings to the table to contribute to winning.
6 weeks ago, nobody was taking this Los Angeles Lakers team seriously. And honestly, they hadn't given anyone a reason to. This was a team sitting near the bottom defensively, ranked 23rd in the league, getting exposed on that end night after night.
Kennard to win the game! Yes! 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 Luke Kennard! Luke Kennard!
And when it actually mattered against real competition, the numbers told an even worse story.
Buzzer! Austin Reeves does it again! Wow!
Against teams above .500, they were just 12 and 17. Not contenders, not dangerous, just another inconsistent team trying to figure itself out.
He's showing you that he's that once-in-a-generation player. This is the Luka that every year we believe has a chance at the MVP.
3 stars on the floor, but no clear hierarchy. No identity you could point to. And when the game tightened up, no real answers. 3. 6 weeks ago, nobody was taking this Lakers team seriously, and honestly, that was fair. They had the talent, no question, but everything else fell off. The defense was near the bottom of the league, the record against good teams was underwhelming, and when the game slowed down, there was no clear direction. It looked like a group of talented players trying to figure things out on the fly. And in the NBA, that's not enough. Because talent without structure doesn't win in the playoffs, it gets exposed. And that's exactly where this team was heading before everything changed. Then came a loss that forced a shift. A blowout against the Boston Celtics that didn't just show flaws, it magnified them. It wasn't competitive, it wasn't close, it was a statement that this version of the Lakers wasn't ready. After the game, Luka Doncic spoke about potential, about how the pieces could work, but admitted they weren't there yet. Most people heard that and moved on. But inside that locker room, it meant something more. Because the issue was never about ability, it was about clarity. 3 elite creators sharing the floor without a defined hierarchy. LeBron James, Luka, and Austin Reeves, all capable of running an offense, all needing the ball, but no system telling them how it should work together. For most of the season, it felt like turns instead of rolls. Luka would step back in moments where he should have taken over. LeBron would push the pace when the offense needed control, and Reeves would float between responsibilities without a clear lane. That kind of uncertainty doesn't just hurt rhythm, it breaks identity. And the numbers backed it up. A struggling defense, inconsistent performances, and losses stacking up against teams that actually mattered. The Lakers weren't just underperforming, they were undefined. The turning point didn't come from a speech or a trade. It came from a change in mindset. When LeBron missed a few games with injury, something unexpected happened. The team didn't collapse, it simplified. Luka took full control, the offense had direction, and the roles became clearer. But the real shift came when LeBron returned. Because he didn't come back to reclaim control, he came back different. He adjusted his role completely, moving off the ball more, setting screens, attacking in space, and letting Luka become the primary engine of the offense. For a player of his stature, that kind of shift isn't common. It's talked about but rarely executed. And yet, he didn't just accept it, he thrived in it. That decision changed everything. Suddenly, the offense had structure. Luka could operate without hesitation, knowing the system was built around his strengths. LeBron became a connector, still impactful, but no longer dominating every possession. And Austin Reeves found his role as a secondary creator, someone who could step in without disrupting the flow. The hierarchy was no longer a question, it was clear. And once that clarity existed, the entire team started to look different. But offense was never the biggest issue. The real transformation happened on the defensive end. And that's where Marcus Smart comes in. Before his impact, the Lakers simply couldn't get stops when it mattered. Closed games slipped away because there was no defensive identity, no player setting the tone. Smart changed that immediately. He brought intensity, communication, and a level of physicality that forced everyone else to raise their standard. It's not something you always see in the box score, but you feel it in the game. Opposing stars became less efficient, possessions became harder, and suddenly the Lakers weren't just scoring, they were controlling. That defensive shift created a ripple effect. Stops turned into transition opportunities, transition led to easier offense, and easier offense built confidence. What used to feel forced started to look natural. The same team that struggled to defend anyone earlier in the season began climbing the rankings, showing signs of a real identity forming. And once that identity took hold, everything else started to align. A huge part of that alignment comes from the sideline. JJ Redick deserves more credit than he's getting for what this team has become. Managing 3 high-level players is one challenge, but getting them to fully buy into roles is something else entirely. He didn't just design a system, he enforced it. He created accountability, defined expectations, and most importantly, he got his stars to commit to something bigger than themselves. That's not easy, especially in a market like Los Angeles, but it's exactly what this team needed. With structure in place, the spotlight naturally shifts back to Luka, and what he's doing right now goes beyond a typical hot streak. He's dominating games in multiple ways, adjusting based on the defense, controlling pace, and delivering when it matters most. Some nights it's scoring, other nights it's playmaking, but the impact is constant. It doesn't feel random, it feels calculated. That's the difference between someone getting hot and someone operating at an elite level consistently. But the most important moment of this run didn't come in a game where Luka went off. It came in a game where he didn't. A game where the shots weren't falling, where the offense stalled, where the pressure was high. The kind of situation that used to expose this team. And instead of collapsing, they found a way to win. That's when you know something is real. Because great teams don't rely on one outcome. They adapt when things go wrong. That's the difference between this version of the Lakers and the one we saw earlier in the season. Before, they had talent but no identity. Now they have structure, clarity, and a system that holds even under pressure. The question is no longer whether they can put together a winning streak. It's whether this version of the team can sustain it when the stakes get higher. Because the playoffs don't reward talent alone. They test discipline, execution, and the ability to adjust. And for the first time all season, the Lakers look like a team that can handle that test. They've gone from a group people doubted to one that forces opponents to rethink their approach. And that shift didn't happen by accident. It came from sacrifice, structure, and a system finally clicking at the right time. Now the rest of the league has to figure them out. Because 6 weeks ago, this team looked like a problem for itself. Today, it looks like a problem for everyone else. 6 weeks ago, nobody took this Lakers team seriously. And honestly, they had a point. The numbers didn't lie. A bottom-tier defense, inconsistent performances, and a record that couldn't hold up against real competition. On paper, it looked like another talented roster with no real direction. 3 stars sharing a floor, but no hierarchy, no identity, and no answers when the game slowed down. It felt like a team waiting for something to click, but nobody really believed it would. And then something changed. Not overnight. Not with one game. Not even with one player getting hot. What happened was quieter than that, but way more dangerous. Because this wasn't just a streak. This was structure forming in real time. This was roles being accepted. This was a team finally understanding itself. And once that happens, it doesn't just disappear. It started after loss. Not a close one either. A blowout that exposed everything. The kind of loss that forces uncomfortable conversations. The kind that makes players look at each other differently in the locker room. That night, the questions weren't about effort. They were about identity. Who are we when it matters? Who takes control? Who sacrifices? Because all season long, that had been the problem. Not talent. Never talent. The issue was that everyone could do everything, and that meant nobody had clearly defined responsibility. Possessions felt random. Decision-making felt shared instead of owned. And against elite teams, that kind of uncertainty gets exposed every single time. Then came a turning point. In early March, everything shifted, but not in the way people expected. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a trade. It wasn't even a dramatic moment. It was a role change, subtle but massive. One player stepped back, not because he had to, not because he couldn't still dominate, but because the team needed something different. The offense stopped being about taking turns and started being about flow. One player became the engine. Another became the connector. And suddenly, the game started making sense. You could see it immediately. The spacing improved. The reads became quicker. The hesitation disappeared. Instead of forcing plays, they were reacting naturally. And when a team reaches that level of understanding, everything speeds up without actually rushing. But that was only half of it. Because offense was never the real issue. Stars can always score. That's what they do. The real problem had been defense. Effort, communication, consistency. It just wasn't there. And without it, none of the offense mattered. Then someone stepped in and changed the tone completely. From the first possession, you could feel it. Pressure at the point of attack. Hands in passing lanes. Physicality that hadn't been there before. Every possession became uncomfortable for the opponent. Not flashy. Not something that shows up in highlights. But something that changes games. Suddenly, opposing stars weren't getting easy looks anymore. Every catch was contested. Every drive had resistance. And over time, that kind of pressure wears teams down. It breaks rhythm. It forces mistakes. And once those mistakes start happening, everything else opens up. Defense turned into transition. Transition turned into easy points. And easy points turned into confidence. And confidence is where everything really changed. Because now the offense wasn't just structured, it was dangerous. The main scorer wasn't just putting up numbers, he was controlling games. Not the same way every night either. Some games it was scoring. Other nights it was playmaking. Sometimes it was both. But the key difference was this. He was reading the game instead of forcing it. That's what separates a hot streak from something real. A hot streak looks the same every night. Shots fall, confidence builds, and everything feels easy until it doesn't. But what's happening here is different. This is adaptability. This is a player seeing what the defense is doing and responding instantly. If they trap, he passes. If they switch, he attacks. If they collapse, he finds shooters. There's no single way to stop it because it doesn't rely on one pattern. And that's why this run feels sustainable. Look at the quality of wins. These aren't easy games. These aren't soft opponents. These are playoff-level teams getting beaten in convincing fashion. Not just wins, controlled wins. Games where the outcome feels decided before the final minutes even arrive. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens when everything aligns. Talent, roles, effort, and trust. And right now, all four are working together. But maybe the most important moment of this entire stretch didn't come in a dominant win. It came in a game where everything went wrong. Shots stopped falling. The offense stalled. The momentum shifted. And suddenly, they were in a situation that used to define them earlier in the season. Late game, close score, no clear answer. Before, that's where things would fall apart. This time, they didn't. Someone else stepped up. Not the main star. Not the usual option. But someone ready for the moment. The play was executed perfectly. The shot went up. And just like that, game over. That's when you know something is different. Because great teams don't just win when everything is working. They win when it isn't. And that's the real story here. This isn't about one player going on a scoring run. It's not about a lucky stretch. It's about a system finally forming. A hierarchy being accepted. A defensive identity being built. And a group of players buying into something bigger than individual numbers. Now, the question changes. It's no longer are they good? It's can they sustain this? Because the playoffs are a different challenge. Teams get time to prepare. They study tendencies. They adjust. They force you into uncomfortable situations over and over again. And that's where structure matters most. Because when the game slows down, when every possession counts, when there's nowhere to hide, the teams with clarity survive. The ones without it don't. Right now, this Lakers team looks like a group that finally understands itself. The roles are clear. The effort is consistent. The system is working. And the confidence is real. But the real test is still coming. Can they maintain this when the pressure rises? Can they execute when defenses are locked in? Can they keep trusting the system when things get tight? Because if they can, this isn't just a good stretch. This is the beginning of something serious. And if they can't, then it becomes just another story of potential that never fully turned into reality. So now it's your call. Are you buying into what this team is becoming? Or are you waiting for it to fall apart when it matters most? Because one thing is clear. The version of this Lakers team we're seeing right now is not the same one we saw 6 weeks ago. And the rest of the league is starting to notice.